10 signs you have a wounded inner child. Hi guys, I'm Laura, and in this video we're going to talk about the signs of having a wounded inner child and what we can do to help heal our inner child. So, we all develop some sort of childhood trauma or wound. Some people have more childhood traumas and wounds than others. It all depends on what your childhood was like growing up. So a childhood trauma or wound could be something as simple as you're 3 years old and you got lost in a store, and it causes some sort of trauma in you, and then you give yourself these meanings around the situation that happened. So that actually happened to me. I was about 3 or 4 and I remember getting lost in a store and freaking out, and I did get reunited with my family, but there was definitely a sense of abandonment there. And that trauma you go through during that time, you're a little kid and you're like lost from your parents, there's that, you're freaking out inside, and that trauma can stick with you and you can develop meanings around it. And then we just these meanings can be running on the autopilot mind, so we sort of have to figure out what our childhood wounds are so we can heal them, so we can release them, and the meanings will go with them. The first sign that you have a wounded inner child is being a people pleaser or wanting to fix others. People pleasing actually stems from an abandonment wound, and I was a people pleaser, but I didn't realize that's what I was doing. I just thought I was being good to people, and I didn't understand what I was actually doing was people pleasing. So that's a sign that you have a wounded inner child if you go out of your way to try to please others. The reason you're doing this is because you're trying to get love and validation from pleasing other people that you may not have felt you got in childhood, and you're not giving to yourself. So you need to have a look at if you have people pleasing type behavior. The second sign you have a wounded inner child is you feel ashamed at expressing your emotions. And I used to be like this as well, and I have learnt to express my emotions and be vulnerable. So if you have a hard time expressing yourself, that is a sign you have a wounded inner child. Sign number 3 that you have a wounded inner child is you get attached to people too easily or codependency. If you are codependent and you get attached to people too easily, then that means that you have a wounded inner child, and you need to go within to figure out why. Sign number 4 that you have a wounded inner child is you have a fear of being alone. You may be someone that jumps from relationship to relationship to relationship without having time in between to yourself. And it's because you have this fear of being alone that stems from a wounded inner child. And it's really not a healthy way to go about relationships when you bounce and not having that time for yourself in between. It's quite unhealthy. So if that is you, you need to connect with your inner child, you need to heal your inner child, and you need to learn that it's okay to be on your own. Sign number 5 that you have a wounded inner child is you have a feeling of low self-worth. If you don't feel worthy and you've got low self-worth, that is stemming from a childhood wound. Sign number 6 that you have a wounded inner child is, I had this one too. You think there is something wrong with you. So things that happen in your childhood lead you to believe that there is something wrong with me. There's something wrong with me. And I had that one, and I've learned to flip it, because there is absolutely nothing wrong with me, just like there is absolutely nothing wrong with you. What number are we up to? 7. Sorry, guys. Sign number 7, that you have a wounded inner child, and it is you feel responsible for other people's feelings. What? You feel responsible for other people's feelings. If you're doing this, then you have a wounded inner child, and you need to take a look at why you're doing this. Sign number 8 is you need external validation. So you as a child may not have felt like you got that validation from your parents, that love and validation, and instead of getting it from yourself inside, you're looking outside for this validation, and people sense that of you. People sense when you're wanting validation from them, that they sense that energy. And what you need to learn to do is you need to learn to validate yourself. It comes from within. You need to learn to validate yourself, and when you do this, you will stop seeking it from the outside, and you won't have that energy there that people will be picking up on. Instead, you'll have an energy, a different type of energy where you are validating yourself, and people will sense that. Sign number 9, that you have a wounded inner child, and that is you have a need to prove yourself. That was another one I have too. A need to prove yourself. Like if you were treated as a child that you weren't going to amount to much, that you're not worthy, and you had all these sort of childhood feelings that there's something wrong with you, you're not worthy, you're not going to amount to anything. It's like you have this need within you to prove yourself. So that comes from a wounded inner child. And number 10, the 10th sign that you have a wounded inner child, and that is another one I had, difficulty setting boundaries. Now, I've learned that it's actually really important to set boundaries with people, because if you don't, people will sense if you do not have boundaries, and they will, if you let them, they will walk all over you like a doormat. So it's really important that if you're having difficulty setting boundaries, it's because you have a wounded inner child, and it's really important that you learn to start setting boundaries for yourself, because you need to protect yourself. Because if you don't protect yourself with boundaries, like I said, people will know this, and they will use you as much as you'll allow them to. So it's really important to take your power back and set boundaries for yourself to protect yourself. So those are the 10 signs that you have a wounded inner child. Now we are going to talk about what we can do to heal the inner child. So the first step to heal your inner child is to acknowledge that you have wounds. You need to acknowledge you have wounds. The next step is you want to set the intention to connect with your inner child. So you can do this through meditation. And setting intentions is very powerful. So set the intention to connect with your inner child. Number 3 is start meditating and going within. Start going within, connecting with that inner child, and see what comes up. You can do this through meditation. Just see what brings up, like guided meditations, that's what I did. I did an inner child guided meditation, and I had a memory come up. The memory was, I was the middle child, and I was in my sibling's shadow growing up. And my siblings kind of got more attention and all that, and so there was this memory that came up in a child meditation where in the memory it was me and my older brother were with my dad, and I remembered I didn't really get a lot of attention, and more of the attention was on my brother, and I remembered I pretended to hurt myself to get some attention, like, hey, I'm over here too. And this memory, I completely forgot about it, but the memory came up in a child meditation I did, And then there was the belief attached to this memory, and the belief was that I don't matter. And that was running in the autopilot mind. And then once I did this meditation and this memory came up with the belief attached to it, I was now aware of this belief. And so I was able to reprogram the belief. So you just flip your belief. I started basically drilling into myself that I do matter, I do matter, I do matter. Like every day, you drill it into yourself and you're reprogramming your subconscious mind. And then that's how you that's one way of healing these beliefs created by our childhood wounds. It's reframing and flipping them and re-drilling and reprogramming it into yourself. So that was the fourth thing to do with healing the inner child, is reframing meanings and reframing beliefs. So another meaning I reframed was, so I was physically abandoned by my dad. My mum and dad broke up when my mum was still pregnant with me. My dad lived in a different country pretty much all for my childhood until I was like 12. And I didn't talk to my dad for a long time because I sort of could never really understand how a parent could just abandon their child like that. I had to reframe this, and I had to acknowledge that my dad has a lot of his own unhealed childhood wounds. And because he's got all these, like it's pretty bad, his level of wounds are pretty bad. And because of that, I had to learn to forgive my dad and acknowledge that, oh, he's just got a really, like, a lot of unhealed childhood wounds going on. And so I was able to forgive him based off that, having like compassion and empathy. And I reframed his abandonment by reframing it by, well, my dad was someone that had these unhealed childhood wounds, but it made him quite an angry, abusive person. So I realized him abandoning me and my siblings was, in hindsight, a good thing, because if he was around with his unhealed childhood wounds, his anger, and abuse, then we would have probably most likely copped it. And so we would have been like made probably more messed up than what we are. We're not really that messed up in general, but you know, we could be a lot more worse off if he was around and being abusive or angry or whatever. So that's how I reframed it. Was like, actually, it was probably a good thing in hindsight that he wasn't around because of the way he was, but also having that compassion and empathy to forgive him for it all, because I know the sort of childhood he had, and it really wasn't good. So that was how I was able to reframe that. So that was the next point. Is, what are we up to? Number 6 is to learn to forgive your parents. So that's how I learned to forgive my dad. I reframed it all and learned to forgive. Forgiveness is huge. Forgiveness is for you, not them. So if you don't forgive and you're hanging on to things in your inside, in your body, in your energy, in your subconscious, you think of it like poison. So you're holding on to this poison in your body, and it's only you who's going to be affected by it. So when you're forgiving, it's for you, not them, because when you forgive, it's like you're releasing that poison out of your body, and your energy will change, and it'll be gone out of your energy field. So forgiveness is really in a big one, an important one, and it can be hard to do, especially if you feel like you deserve an apology, which I didn't get apologies, but I had to learn to forgive, but I am better for it because of that. So number 7 is learn to love yourself and feel worthy. Self-love is so important. It is so important, and we're not taught it. And self-love can come in many different forms. It could be like just exercising and eating healthy. That's a form of self-love. Buying yourself flowers is a form of self-love. Taking yourself out to get your favorite food is a form of self-love. Running a nice relaxing bath. It comes in all different types of forms. And treating yourself with love is just so important, because you're amazing. You're awesome. And you deserve to treat yourself with love. And you want to also have that feeling of worthiness, and just drill it into yourself. I am worthy, I am worthy, I am worthy every day. Drill it into the subconscious mind and program that you are worthy. You are worthy, whole and complete, and you love yourself, and you will bring your vibration up and be vibrating so much higher. And number 8, I think we're up to. Sorry, I'm losing track of where I'm at, but I think we're up to number 8. You need to observe your negative self-talk. So your negative self-talk isn't actually you. That is other people that have programmed you to think these things about yourself. They're not true, and they don't actually stem from you. It's someone else's voice in your head, basically. So observe your negative self-talk, and you can even journal. Journaling is actually great. God, I did journaling, and I got so much out. And yeah, it's a useful tool and helpful and that. So yeah, just observe what sort of negative self-talk you have, and don't believe it. It's not true. It's not actually your voice. These are voices that have come from outside. And once you observe the negative self-talk, again, you can reprogram and flip it with positive self-talk. Number 9 is give love to your inner child and have empathy. So I did the inner child meditation, where we actually in the meditation met with our inner child and gave our inner child love. So your inner child is always within you, and it is always a part of you, and it's not going anywhere. But you don't want to ignore your inner child. You want to learn to connect with it. Give your inner child that love that it didn't receive or felt like it didn't receive. You have empathy for your inner child. Like little Laura, you shouldn't have felt like you didn't matter. You know, you have empathy. You give you can imagine hugging your inner child, or have a photo of your child, a photo of yourself as a child, and just imagine giving your inner child a hug. You know, giving your inner child that love and that support, and talking positively to your inner child, and things like that, you know, like to help heal that inner child that is within you and will always be within you. And another tip I'm going to add is learn to not take life so seriously, and learn to just have fun. And that is also part of your inner child. Your inner child, like your childlike self, is all about having fun. And there's things from our childhood, for me anyways, that I really enjoyed and really thought was fun that you don't really do in your adult life. Now, one example of this is I really get into a high vibe, happy state when I'm on a swing. Just swinging, and I'm just like, whoa, this is great. This is so great. Like, why don't adults do this more? Like, why do we have to stop doing fun stuff when we're an adult? Who makes these rules? Who says we have to stop playing on a swing? Like, whatever brings you joy, do it. If there's things from your childhood that bring you joy, like colouring in books, do it. Just because you're an adult doesn't mean you have to outgrow this stuff. If it brings you joy, if you find it fun, like, do things from your childhood that you enjoy, and you'll connect with that inner child a lot more. So, your inner child deserves it. Your inner child deserves your love and attention, support, and is wanting to connect with you. So that's it for today, guys. The 10 signs that you have a wounded inner child, and what you can do to heal your wounded inner child. I hope you like this video. Feel free to like and share, or don't. And have an awesome day. Peace, much love, and namaste.